We have begun a new study called the Song of Love. We're looking at the Song of Solomon and seeing how the relationship developed between King Solomon as young king and his favorite bride, the one that he wrote the greatest of all his songs. Our text tonight on the banquet house will be the lesson, but the text is taken from Song of Solomon, the second chapter and verse 4. This is where the maiden is speaking, the Shulamith maiden, and she says, "He brought me to his banqueting house, and his banner over me was love." Now, what this is doing is like taking a picture out of a family photo album and saying, now here's what happened here. And this is talking about the first time that Solomon had invited the Shulamith maiden to come with him to the royal palace. Remember, she was a shepherdess. She was a shepherd girl, and she had never seen anything like this in her life. And so this was an amazing experience for her to go to the royal palace. Let's talk about the royal palace and the experience that they had. This goes back into chapter 1, and it begins with her thoughts. She begins, first of all, comparing herself to everybody else and feeling completely unworthy to be in this kind of situation. And then she turns her focus on him. Now listen to me carefully. If you're going to build strong relationships, you must not focus on yourself. That you will never be able to accomplish strong relationships thinking about you. You must think about others. And she corrects herself and stops talking about herself and starts talking about Solomon, the king, the young king that has invited her here to this banquet feast like she has never seen before. And the first thing she speaks about is his lovely cologne that he is wearing it. And what she does, she compares it to something that she knows, which is spices and flowers. And she said, your cologne, it's like a lovely fragrance of a flower. And then she gives him what becomes her favorite name. We would call it a pet name for Solomon. She calls him my beloved, my beloved. Now, in reading the Song of Solomon, many people have difficulty in understand who's saying what to whom, who is speaking now, and this is one of the keys to help you to understand the book. Every time that you read the word my beloved, that's the maiden speaking. That's the Shulamith maiden. Every time you read the words my love, that is Solomon talking to her. So these became the favorite words. Now, this is very common among lovers to develop pet names that they use for one another. In fact, for instance, my wife and I, we've been married now for almost 49 years, and my favorite word for her is simply honey. Honey. I never call her by her name unless it's some kind of official setting. She's just honey to me. And that's common among lovers, that they develop these pet names that they use. And so anytime you read the words, my beloved, remember that's Shulamith speaking to Solomon. If you read the words, my love, that is Solomon speaking to the Shulamith. Solomon interrupts her as she's talking about his lovely cologne that he's wearing and such a lovely fragrance. And he interrupts by praising her. Now again, this is the key on building relationships. If you want to build strong relationships, you do it by complimenting one another. Look for something good that you can say. One of the worst things you can do for a relationship is start criticizing. Criticism will kill our relationship. And so what he does, she is complimenting him, he begins complimenting her. And he gives words of praise. He begins by talking about her beautiful eyes. He refers to this many times in the book, but this is the first time he's mentioned them. And he begins praising her beautiful eyes, and then he uses his pet name that he comes to call her my love. My love. And he compares her beauty to a dove, to the turtle dove, the bird that flies. Now, the turtle dove not only was a beautiful bird, but it had a lovely song, a beautiful song. Now, we're going to find, again, through Song of Solomon, anytime you find the word my dove, that's Solomon talking to her. Later, we're going to find that she develops another pet name for him that she calls him by as well. But these are common ways that lovers express themselves to one another. And I would encourage you in your relationships, use the same techniques. It's very good in helping to build the relationship. So he calls her my dove. Now, something else I want to point out. Anyone that has studied the Bible understands the New Testament was written in the Greek language, and there is 5 Greek words which are translated love in our English Bible. What many people do not know, here in Song of Solomon, there are 3 Hebrew words that are used to express love. Let me show them to you. The first one is found in chapter 1 and verse 2, where she says, your love is better than wine. The word there, and if I can pronounce the Hebrew correctly, is dod. Dod. And it just simply means an intensive impulse and desire. Like the desire to take someone, embrace them, to kiss them. That's what this word means. The second Hebrew word that we find here in the first chapter is in verse 3, where it talks about the virgins love you. Now, the word that is translated love there is a completely different Hebrew word, ahav. Ahav. And it simply means a strong emotional attachment. And so you can see completely different words. And there's a third one that is found here, and this is in this section that we're talking about, the banqueting house. It's down in verse 15, where he speaks to her and says, behold, you are fair, my love. And the word that he uses, again, a completely different Hebrew word, the word raya. And it simply means a close relationship. So we see that even when it comes to the Hebrew, and the Greeks, of course, were much more technical in their language, and they had twice as many words in their vocabulary as the Hebrews did. But it shows that in both languages, we find difficulty in communicating what we're really feeling when we love someone. It becomes a difficulty in communicating that love to each other. The second part of this lesson I want to deal with, I'm going to call it the green forest. Now, whether or not they have taken a walk on the park outside the palace, I don't know. All I know is she begins to describe their relationship like a green forest. And what I would say in beginning this is simply praise prompts praise. The opposite is also true. Criticism makes some very unhappy people, and then you've got everybody griping, complaining about something. But if you want to create a positive atmosphere that builds strong relationships, start praising. She is complimenting him. He begins praising her. Now she breaks in with words of praise for Solomon. She compares their relationship to a lovely garden forest. Now, it is very possible, most palaces were this way, they would have gardens around the palace. It's very possible that they have gone for a walk in the garden. Whatever reason, she begins to talk about their relationship, and she uses a word picture he can understand. She says, our relationship is green. I find that interesting. That means it's alive and it's growing. Our couch is green. And I think the word couch there is a better word to translate her feelings, because many translations use the word bed, but we tend to think of bed in a marriage situation between husband and wife. That is not what she's talking about at all. I think the word could better be translated the couch. And she is saying, this place where we are, it's green. It's not brown. If it was brown, it would be dying. It's dead. No, it's green. It's alive. It is growing. And I will point out that every relationship is this way. It's either alive and growing, or it is turning brown and it's dying. The choice is up to you. So if we begin by praising one another and complimenting each other, we can build a relationship which is alive and growing. It is so sad to see that many people in life, they begin their relationship green, but they end up brown. The young couple that is madly in love with each other just becomes the old man and the old woman. What a tragedy. God never intended for marriage to be that way. In fact, I read an email just this morning that touched me very deeply. It was a man speaking about his bride of 36 years, and he's describing her condition, that obviously she has dementia, that the things have happened to her mind, that she's trapped inside this body. And he's referring to the young woman that he married, that is the mother of their children. And he said, 36 years ago when I married you, but I know that you're still inside there, and I still love you and want to communicate that love. What a beautiful picture. What a beautiful picture of what God intended for marriage to be. That's what she's describing here in this green forest, in this forest that's alive and growing. Our relationship is well, it is healthy. Then she comes back to a thought about herself. And when she thinks of herself, it's obviously, she doesn't have that high of esteem. She says, I am a rose of Sharon. Now that's a beautiful poetic phrase, but the truth is, the rose of Sharon was just a common flower that grew by the thousands in the fields. It was known, everywhere, the rose of Sharon. It was just a wild flower that grew. And so many people, they look at the poetic side of this, but what she's saying, I'm just a simple girl. I'm just a shepherd girl. I am nothing special. And Solomon will hear none of it. He breaks in, interrupts her, and says, you're not a rose of Sharon. You're like a lily among thorns. A lily among thorns? What's he saying? He's saying, you are someone special. You are one of a kind. There's nobody else that is like you. Now, you can tell that their relationship, they've not just been attracted to each other, but they're doing the right things to build this relationship so that it will become a strong relationship as they later marry. And we will find that when we get to chapter 4, their wedding night, their honeymoon. So as she says, I'm a rose of Sharon, no. You're like a lily among thorns. You are one of a kind. There is none like you. Now, I want to pause for just a moment and talk about the thorns. The thorns. When you go back and you study thorns from the Bible, here's the things you discover. Thorns are related to the fall. In other words, before Adam and Eve sinned, there were no thorns. Thorns grow of themselves. You don't have to plant thorns. No, you don't have to put weeds in your garden. They will come up of their own nature. Thorns grow out of a cursed ground. The ground that had the curse upon it because of the sin of Adam and Eve. That's where they come. They grow without cultivation. You don't have to, you don't have to plant them. You don't have to cultivate them. You got to beware that they don't take over your garden. Because if you don't deal with the thorns, the little things that become irritations in a relationship, the little things that stick you, prick you, that make you uncomfortable, they will choke the good seed. Jesus told us that. The thorns sprang up and they choked the good seed so that it could not bring forth fruit. The same is true in our relationship, in our marriage, and our romance with our lover. If we don't deal with the thorns, it will choke the relationship and keep it from being fruitful. And ultimately, Jesus says, the thorns will be burned. That's what we need to do with the thorns that are in our life. We need to be uprooting them, pulling them up and destroying them so that they do not affect our relationship. Now let me take you to the third part of this lesson. The third part, I want to talk about the banquet table itself. They have come to the royal palace, they've walked through the gardens, and they've seen all of the wonderful things that kings are so well known for developing around them. They see all this beautiful place, and then they come back to the banqueting table. At the banqueting table, she sees things she's never seen before. And again, she's the first one to speak up. She begins to compare their relationship to the apple tree. Obviously, there's fruit on this table in front of her. Beautiful, delicious fruit that she sees. And so she begins to compare their relationship to this fruit, and she said, you are like the apple tree. Now, it was known, of course, not only for its sweet fragrance, the beautiful flowers, but it's also known for its very sweet fruit. It's a aromatic fruit. It's the sweet apple, and she compares his presence to the apple tree. Now remember, she's a shepherd girl. She's a farm girl. And so she's relating to things that she knows personally. And she's saying, it is so sweet to be in your presence. Just to be here with you is something that is very special. Now, I would encourage you, whatever your background may be, and all of us are coming from somewhere, whatever it is, take things of your relationship that your lover understands and use those word pictures to communicate with them. Solomon knows what she's doing. She's talking about the sweet fruit that she sees, which reminds her of the farm that she has grown up on, and the sweet apple trees, and saying, that's what your presence is to me. It is a pleasant shade. It is a fragrant presence. I'm so glad to be here with you. See, building a relationship, it takes mutual attraction. I'm sure all of us remember those days when she likes me, but I can't stand her. Or I like her, but she never gives me a thought of the day. Oh, I'm glad those days happen in our youth so that the energy that is wasted there. And she likes me, but I don't like her. And then one day, you find someone that you like, you're attracted to, and she likes you too. I think back to the first time that I met my wife-to-be. First time I saw Evelyn, of course, I'd never met her, never seen her before, and I was a dirty mess. I was climbing out from under my Ford car. I had just changed the oil in my car, and I looked the part. I mean, I've got dirt and oil on me, and I climb out and under it, and here comes this lady by driving this red Chevy. And I thought to myself, what a beautiful lady. What a pretty lady. I still think that today. I still remember that vividly in my mind. And what a wonderful thing love is. The attraction, how that it grabs our attention. And that's what's happening here. They know something is special. He likes her, but she likes him. They've got something to build their relationship upon. It takes mutual attraction to do this, to accomplish this. And that's what we're finding. So as she's here at this, what she calls a love feast, and it was a love feast. It wasn't just the king's banqueting table. No, she's there with someone that means something very special to her, even though they're still strangers and hardly know each other. The attraction is there, and she's enjoying this time with her beloved. It's a beautiful time in relationships. You have to build upon it, but it's a wonderful place to be when you know that you're with someone that's very special to you and that you are special to them. You have the opportunity of building a relationship together that will become lasting for the rest of your life. It's at this point where she gives us one of these key phrases that we find this phrase 3 times in Song of Solomon. This is the first time that we find it. It says, "Don't awaken love too early." Or as some translate it, don't awaken love until it or he pleases. And we think, some people think that she's talking about he's asleep, don't wake him up. No, I don't believe that's the meaning here. I think the meaning is basically she's talking about the emotions of love. And she's saying, don't awaken it too early. Now listen to me and listen carefully here. Emotions make wonderful servants, but terrible masters. It is a shame that Webster's dictionary defines love as an emotion. Oh, love is so much more than that. Of course there is emotion. Of course there is passion. But there's much more involved to love than just a feeling. Don't awaken love too early. It's the first time she uses this. And remember, this is when their courtship, their romance is really becoming intense. They now know, I like him and he likes me. I mean, it's a strong mutual attraction. And what she's doing here, she is giving a significant warning that at this stage of your relationship, if you allow the emotions to take control, to take charge of the relationship, you can spoil the relationship by awakening love too early. See, it's like the picture of the flower bud. If you pick the bud too early, you pick it before it has time to bloom. Don't make that mistake. That's a mistake that too many people have made over and over and over again, and it becomes a hurdle that you will have to overcome later in your marriage. And you don't want that. That is something that hinders your relationship. It's something that hurts the relationship. That is not God's will for you. So what is the wisdom? The wisdom is to listen to the words of the maiden when she says, don't awaken love too early. Keep it within the proper confines. Oh, I can remember those days as a young man. And I remember in dating, I only dated a few girls in my life, but I remember, I would find that girls were one thing in church and something else when they got outside of church. It just like two different people. And so when I met Evelyn, I made a deliberate decision. I'm only going to talk to her. I'm not even going to hold her hand. I'll open the door for her. I'll be a gentleman, but I don't want to build the emotions too quickly. Because if I build the emotions too quickly, then I have a hard time knowing, do I really love her? Or am I only emotionally attached to her? I'm so thankful I made that decision. And I look back and I realize God was helping me through that situation. Now, this is what the maiden is talking about here. Don't awaken love too early is don't allow the passion of your feelings. Don't allow the passion of the romance of your emotions to take control of it. Because as I said, emotions make wonderful servants, but terrible masters. And this is what happens to too many people later in their marriage, when suddenly the passion is not there like it was when they first met. The emotion is not there, and it's just becoming the old man and the old woman. No. The passion doesn't have to die if you will keep it within its proper boundaries. So this is what I've discovered about love. True love is built on lasting relationships. I can remember my son-in-law telling me, going to visit the oldest parishioners in the church, and they were both in their 90s, and she was dying in the hospital, and he went to try to be an encouragement, a blessing, and he said, when I walked into the room, there he sat by her bedside. She is asleep or in a coma, but he's got her hand between his two hands. One of his hands below her hand, the other one on top of it, and he's sitting just looking into her eyes. And Pastor Vince told me, I never saw love like that before. See, that's what God wants for you. God wants your love to be stronger at the end of your relationship than at the beginning. So learn from this couple. They're giving us a lot of good, godly advice on how to build lasting relationships. Built it upon mutual attraction. Built it upon praise. But don't allow emotions to take control and rule your life, or you will find they will lead you down a dead-end street, the wrong way to go. May God bless you as you build your relationship with those that you love, and may you find that the end of your relationship is even better than the beginning. May God bless you.